Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you all for coming. This is for you who haven't been here before. My name's Deann, and this is Deann Shield Maiden Tarot, and this is Andre from Astrology Alert. He's an astrologer, and he is great with these charts, and I love him. He's on Linda G's all the time. Talks about. I remember you were talking about in the past how everything was going his way. Teflon Don, nothing sticks. But you said now in his charts things are looking a little different, didn't you?
You're talking about the Orange Menace,
The
Trump.
Orange Menace. That yeah,
Yeah. No, Trump is. I think what frustrates people that are against him. There are many of us. Is that that he seems to be immune. But I mean, when you think about it, most of those 4 years when he was president, 4 years plus, he was being protected by the Republican Party, who
hmm
they seem to believe that that's a good bargain. And I don't think it's a good bargain. But in any case, he was impeached, but he wasn't convicted. And, historically, if you look back, there was another really awful racist president back in the 1860s. He was so bad that he came within one vote of being convicted, but he also wasn't convicted. So the parties that are associated with the president are often very reluctant to punish their own president. So you can't really count that part. But ever since he left the presidency, it's been a slow moving thing. And to me, it's like a death by a thousand cuts. And I would not want to be in his shoes because the situation, as I see it, just practically look at all the, different investigations, actual uh,
yes,
trials, or like, litigation where he's taking the fifth, which you only take when there's a problem. And then the astrology is already bad because of what's happening, but it gets worse next year because he's a Gemini with the moon in Sagittarius, and he has his nodes there. There's a big cluster in that Gemini Sagittarius polarity, and Saturn is not friendly to that. 23, 24, 25. That's a long swath of time to basically get cemented, in place, not in a good way. So you have to be patient. It's that simple. I mean, when it comes to bringing these types of people to account, because that's the way our legal system works. And by the
it
way,
is so hard.
yeah, I often say to people, you should be thankful the legal system is like this, where a person can really delay and avail themselves of all the protections. Because if it were you, you'd want that, and you don't want to
Yeah,
be in a system like Russia where they knock on the door and just, for whatever reason they make up, they take you away. And so Trump, the genius of Trump is he knows this is the case, and he keeps pushing, pushing and pushing, knowing that he can stall, delay, make up stuff. And so
but it
here we
can't
are,
last
right?
forever. It can't last
No,
forever.
no, nothing lasts forever. And everybody's cycles eventually become really complicated. And Saturn is the last planet that you want in the midst of uh, accountability, in a period where you obviously done things. And this guy is such a light bulb, such a bright light. He thinks he's a genius, but he committed crimes after his presidency where he left actual evidence, like those records. Those are papers. What are you going to
Yes.
say? I mean, he says, oh, they planted them. No, we didn't. They
Yeah,
were
and
in
then
the
he wrote
house.
the 14 page, wasn't it a 14-page thing he wrote, and he incriminated himself in there too.
Exactly. So, I mean, the frustration I feel is that I wish the legal system were more focused on, for example, if you say something on Twitter, you've said it. That's a document that someone can bring up and say, you said this, because there seems to
hmm
be this rule in our country that you can go out in public and say, I saw pigs flying. And then you go in court and you say, well, I said it out there, but no, I don't really mean that. I think especially when you're a public figure, if you say something, you should be able to, or you must then back it up in court. And so this guy's left tons of evidence that is self-incriminating. And now, in a way, it doesn't matter because they have actual papers. I mean, when you start putting Iranian nuclear secrets or, you know, uh, different nuclear secrets like that in your house, that's a major crime in our system. You're not
Oh,
allowed
it
to do
is.
that.
And then
So,
he's telling his people that, oh, Obama did it and Bush did it. They did not,
yeah, I
But
know.
the thing is when he lies, um, there's no fact checking. It's just what he, whatever he says.
And he
that
knows
they'll
that.
believe.
And he knows that Trump's genius is he knows how to push buttons, to get to the outer limits of things.
Yes.
He's practiced this legal strategy his whole life. A lot of his strategy has been spend money, which he often doesn't get legally or fairly, and he uses that through lawyers to stall and often bankrupt people. But the problem is, it's pretty hard to bankrupt the entire U.S. government. They have unlimited resources, so you have a big problem. That's the last thing you want to do, what he's doing right now. But yeah, it's extending it, and I realize people are scared. But by the way, another thing is, people are all worried about him running. If he runs, they will absolutely lose that election, because Trump is a magnet for Democrats to vote in huge numbers. And also notice that now, who's president now? It's much harder to pull off coups and insurrections when the president is not of your party. Trump had his chance, but it was too big a lift, right? He was trying
Yes.
to take over, basically running a coup. And even then it didn't work, right? Even then, there were enough honest people in his own party. Isn't that another crazy thing? That think about every single person, because he keeps saying it's the Democrats. It's an interesting, clever statement to make.
Yeah.
Ever since he's been in the news since 2015, all his problems have been Republicans who have opposed him. They're like Comey is a Republican.
Yes.
Bob Mueller, Republican. The guy who was Attorney General, they're all Republicans. And now in the January 6th committee, all of them are Republicans. Where are the Democrats? Yeah, they're sitting in the committee, but they're not unearthing the evidence and they're not presenting the evidence. It's the Republicans. So that's another marker, to realize people say, oh, the Democrats are evil. No, they're not. They're just kind of standing around.
There's the Republicans, the conservatives, and then there's the MAGA.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and the MAGA people are now calling the Republicans, if they don't follow him, they'll call him, what is it, Rhino? Calling them Rhinos, Republican in name only. So what's happened, I think they've separated their own party into two parties. And so that sounds like that's going to be good for the Democrats, because they're not going to get all the votes.
I think a guy like this, that in politics, I always see it as it's always the lesser of two evils, which is why you saying, well, I'm not happy with either party. That's not a good statement, because then you get possibly the one you really dislike. So in a way, vote against what really scares you the most or troubles you the most. And when you think this way, you realize that, with people like Trump, if they're running, because they are, I mean, he's like an expression of, in Catholicism, what they call Satanism. I mean, this is as low and as evil and as corrupt as you can go.
There's no bottom. There's no bottom.
Right. But that attracts a lot of opposition, which is what happens. This whole thing that went on with the records and all that, in addition to the Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade, those are things that create anger in the opposing party. And then you get more votes. It's harder to get people to show up, for what you say, a good message. Obama was good at that. He was very inspirational, but he's pretty unique. For the most part, you get votes by scaring people, this is what Republicans do all the time. I mean, remember when Trump was president, all of a sudden we had caravans, but they would always be coming in at election time, oh,
always.
Caravans. And then as soon as the election ended, oh, there are no more caravans. I mean, please, you must think we're stupid, all of us.
But I know. Well, apparently there's a lot of people who listen to that, and it's amazing how many people. I mean, I just can't figure it out how so many people are so gullible. And a lot of people say it's a cult. It's like, but how does, somebody mind control? But like you said, it's through fear.
It's through fear. And I think with Trump has a line on, he's got a line on the white male resentment, especially. There are women in there too, but the numbers tell you there's a huge number of millions of white men, usually of their education is, there's not much there and so forth. And he taps in there because he knows they're angry. And they're angry. I mean, what's ironic about this is they're in a party that keeps saying, oh, you should pull your own weight and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Then what are you complaining about? So you lost the industry or whatever it was in Ohio. Find something else to do. So then, like you say, well, the government is evil, but you want the government to do something for you. Like, which is it, right? That's what I'd like to ask these guys. So, but bottom line, Trump knows he can push those buttons. So they'll follow him because he's their representative. He's their guy. And this has happened in history in other places. this cult thing. You remember Jim Jones? I mean, can you imagine?
Yes.
People
and I
drank
feel
poison.
like it's similar, only worse, only there's more.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, there's more, but it's because you're tapping into two big sources in this country. In this country, it's either Democrat or Republican. So he's tapping into that. And many of them think in this way. And then there are many that vote that way because, by and large, Republicans, for example, will cut taxes, which of course then runs up debt. So then Democrats have to raise taxes to pay for it. I mean, it's so crazy.
Yeah, they had Boebert on there, and she was talking about how women were not as good as men, and that we need a strong man to, I mean, I love my husband, but I don't feel I'm beneath him. We are a team.
Well, I mean, that's another problem, because the thing that I find most sort of interesting, amusing about Trump's chart is that there's that planet that was discovered in 2005 that caused. It was the main reason. I mean, it wasn't the complete reason, but it was the biggest reason why Pluto was demoted by astronomers, right? But once you see that in the astrology system, you realize that planet is very critical. It's going to have some important role, really important role. And then the synchronicity is such that they named it for a woman warrioress, right? So that's a female energy that is in battle. And that planet is very dangerous to men that do the Cosby thing, right? In fact, Cosby was taken down by that planet. Eventually it moved in. And the problem with Eris is it moves so slow when it catches something, if it catches it, because for many people, it doesn't catch anything. It just floats your whole life and does nothing. But for Cosby, it was lethal. And Trump has this planet locked in now and for the next, I'm not kidding you, 12 years at least, right? So whatever else happens to this guy on account of all the crimes he's committed, there's the question of women. And believe me, this is going to happen. Women are going to take him down. Well, already you can see judges, like Judge Amy is a woman, basically.
The New York is a woman.
Yeah, Fannie Willis. I mean, exactly. You see this, sometimes, remind yourself how far we have come, because this would never have happened in the 1860s when the U.S. was last in this kind of civil war, type of mentality for a few years. Back then, women had no voice at all. Now they have a major voice. And
I don't think that they like it. I think they want to quiet the women's voice and not have minority. They want to keep it the rich white men in charge. And
sure.
I think the women, even Republican women, there are some that'll do it, but most Republican even women, I can't imagine that they want to have their rights taken away, that they want to be thought of as lesser. You know what I mean? What's next? Take their voting rights away? That we worked so hard to get?
I mean, you're going, I think with a lot of these things, one just has to be patient, because you have to know what era you live in. In the era we live in, and I mean, we may not know everything, obviously we don't, but there are certain patterns that if you try to impose things on people, it's not going to work. I mean, you're creating anger, you're creating pushback, and you get things like you saw Kansas, right? Kansas full of Republicans, and they said, the statement was Roe v. Wade should be left.
Yeah,
it was. Those rights should be left there. So that's a losing battle when you start doing things like that. Voting is more complicated in that the Republicans have spent years without enough Democratic pushback, really manipulating, the districts and things like that. So it'll probably take longer. But even then, it's such a tough battle to be in, to be thinking, okay, so if we lose, like what they're saying now, like Carrie Lake and people like that, well, if we lose, we'll just say that it was stolen. Okay, Well, then prove it. There are lawyers on both sides. Prove it. They keep saying something wrong with the votes. Maybe, but, remember Arizona? They brought in the ninja, whatever. They counted and they found more votes for Biden. I mean, this whole thing is a joke. But what's incredible is Trump, after that, said, no, that's not what happened. And his people still followed that. So what can you do? Nothing you can do, because they're kind of hypnotized. But it does get resolved in court. And in court, you need to present evidence. That's just how it is, right? It's that simple.
Yeah, he's trying to judge shop. He's trying to find, a judge that is a Republican, what was her name? Was it Cannon?
Yeah, Eileen Cannon. But I mean, look how far that got, right? Eileen Cannon took her, or rather the DOJ took their dispute to the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit is Republican. They're very conservative there. And they said, no, that doesn't work. And then they took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, we're not even going to look at this, right? So now there's a bit of a stay. They've brought in a couple of things, but those things are delays. And by the way, that's all Trump does with legal issues. He knows he's on the wrong side of the issue, but he tries to run out the clock.
I think he's hoping to run out the clock until he's hoping to get Republicans back in office, and they'll let him off the hook, you know?
Yeah.
So, or he's hoping to like run for president and say, this is all political. Sure. I did nothing wrong. They just don't want me.
Mm-hmm. He's hoping, right? That's the mantra. He's hoping, but the planets aren't there for hope. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
It's not there for that. You know, when you're running into hardcore, like Saturn is an accountability, very earthy type of energy that just says, what did you do? This is what you get back. That's it, right? And it's amazing to see a guy like Trump. He's committed major crimes after he lost the presidency. He mounted an insurrection. I pulled a few cards
just to see, because what we were talking about, I just threw a few cards down, and I got the King of Swords in reverse. It's talking about him being a brutal dictator. He wants to be a dictator. He's very controlling. But I get the Six of Swords, which is showing us getting out of the rough waters. So I think, like you said, I think we're in rough waters now, but we're going into smoother times. I think they're really working on things. It's going to take a lot of work, but then I see him walking away. You know, I keep thinking that he's going to end up in a mental institution, or this might just affect his health. How has his health been looking on your charts?
His health is one of the areas where he is consistently vulnerable. Like, because what happens is when you see planetary angles being formed, you look at what part of the chart they're connected to, but it's usually more than one section. Like you'll point to 2 or 3 places. His health has been up for, review, danger, really since about 2018, 2019. And really the only thing he's had was that COVID episode that he had in 2020. But in fact, this thing that I mentioned about 23, 24, 25, that house in the chart is both, and I know that this will sound a bit strange because sometimes with astrology, you ask yourself, well, why are they putting those categories in that house? And they don't necessarily seem to connect. But if you study enough astrology, you realize why. So where the pressure is a place where you see matters of insurance, matters of banking, debt. There's a lot of money concerned in there, but it's also the house of death. Very dangerous to have a planet in there going through there, because it's either major surgery, which is also the same house, or you disappear.
He's got things coming from all directions. I mean, he's got New York, he's got Georgia, he's got the January 6th committee, he's got that rape case going against him, and who knows what else. I think that's going to take a toll on his health, big time.
It probably already is, and he doesn't really give off being particularly healthy or living a particularly healthy life. And on top of which, when you add behavior, a lot of rage, but let's face it, he has to be worried by now.
He has to be. The ketchup bottles have to be flying. I know he's a type of person that goes into rages. I can see him with his face all red, and I know that is not good for his heart.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Along with all the cheeseburgers,
Yeah, and the ice cream and all the rest. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, somebody said Eastman is actively tutoring Republican Board of Election volunteers how to nullify ballots to set a cause for 2024. Right now, Bully's ballot drop-off boxes is nothing to snicker at.
No, all of that is true. But do realize that there are 2 sides in play here. So, Democrats aren't just going to allow some place where they're counting votes to be occupied by Republicans only. And they're going to raise the alarm if anyone tries to do anything. Just like there are Republican lawyers like Rudy Giuliani, who's a total crook. There are lots and lots and lots of Democratic lawyers, and they're good. So you have to have trust in that your side will defend itself. And people criticize Democrats, but I mean, the last election brought about all three houses, right? Or the House and the Senate and the presidency. So, you've got to have a bit of faith too. Otherwise, yes, of course it's true. But you remember, for example, what happened with the Trump tried to make mail voting, which, by the way, is the most secure way to vote, because you put your signature on something and there's an actual paper. So
yes,
by far. But he tried to make a big deal about how it was bad, and then DeJoy was trying to help him by taking away mailboxes and all kinds of things, but that didn't work. In the end, it didn't work. That's the bottom line. It didn't work.
Do you see him going, DeJoy, anytime soon?
I had said, someone had brought this up about a year ago, and my instinct at the time, when I looked at his chart, I don't know if it's time, but the spring of 23, because he is, I believe he's in the same, I don't know if he's Gemini, but he's either Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo. So that those four signs are getting the Saturn pressure starting next year. So when a person has built up, negative energy like that, that's usually when it shifts. So that's probably when it would be in the spring of 23.
Yeah, he needs to go. And those people that are standing there trying to intimidate people with their guns, sitting in there watching them vote, you've heard of that. In some of those places, they're putting their lawn chairs out. I think that's not going to intimidate anybody. I think it's going to make them more ticked off and want to go vote.
That's the thing, that Americans, by and large, both sides are pretty dug in and pretty focused. And also there's the Department of Justice. I mean, I do wish, I actually think Merrick Garland is a lot stronger than people think. But if I were Attorney General, I would give a press conference and I would say, you can do whatever you like, but you'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's what's going to happen here. You break a law, you'll apply it. And by the way, you're not allowed to break into the Capitol, and you can't do that. You'll get jail time for that. And if you're hanging around mailboxes, this is what will happen, or drop boxes. But didn't you see, wasn't there a sheriff that already, I thought I saw that in the news, that protected, that came in.
Oh, it was protecting the people? No, yeah. I didn't see that. I knew there was a lady who she just said, oh, you guys are sitting here. And she sat right down with them. She goes, what you doing? And pretty much you're just sitting here all day staring at these people. But she wasn't intimidated by them, But yeah, I think they're going to be watching those people. They're not going to take a chance.
And by the way, here's another thing. I mean, think about the logic, right? So the world we live in, everybody's got a phone with a camera, right? Everybody. So you go on a corner and you're gonna go and intimidate. What's gonna happen is someone's gonna film you and they're gonna put it on YouTube. Bad idea, because then there's evidence of what you did. So you can then pretend that you didn't do it. A lot of this thing with intimidation and everything else, they want to do it in stealth. That's Trump's perfect trick, do something so that you don't really know what happened. But when there's evidence, video evidence, especially audio evidence, you have a problem, right? So many times with the era we live in, you could say, well, look how rough it is. But on the other hand, you say, well, you're hearing about it. You're in the news. I'll hear it on NPR, which is a very centrist, and pretty much everything that happens, all of a sudden, someone is saying on NPR, well, there was this person trying to intimidate, which means it's getting out there. And that's the beauty of a functioning democracy. You've got a news system that covers, the things that are happening, because it's when you're not hearing it that is dangerous. Then things will happen, and then, your host, they'll make a decision, and you'll think, well, how did that happen? So
I tell you, you and Linda have helped calm me and so many people down, because, I try to stay calm. I listen to you guys, but sometimes you watch this news and it, can get you mad, but it gives me hope. I really do feel you're right, and things are going to get better. If he was still the president, he'd be getting away with more. But like you said, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, that he's extremely dangerous, because now, if he were to be president, he was already kind of on the road to this, but he knows now that he cannot do what he did in the first 2 years and listen to anybody. He just puts in all his lackeys, and he puts in, like, if you think Bill Barr was bad, he's going to get Bill Barr, to the 10th power, someone who would totally do what he would say, and so forth.
Yeah, I don't feel he's ever going to be president again. I think his time is done. But somebody put down here, will Trump assign his minions to try to take out President Biden or Vice President Harris? Seems Mr. Pelosi put a bit of a fight. 82 years old. You heard about that this morning, Paul Pelosi.
I did, yeah.
He was going around saying, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Thank God Nancy wasn't home.
Yeah, I mean, people can try. See, the thing is that you probably will see something more in the next while. I mean, Linda at one point said that she foresaw another insurrection, but that it would be stopped. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to go to jail, or if you want to get yourself killed, like that guy that decided on account of, so the FBI goes to the Mar-a-Lago to execute a legal warrant, because that wasn't a raid. They had a legal warrant, with probable cause. And some crazy guy decided, I'm going to assault the FBI building in some place. And then he got himself killed. I bet you when he gets to the pearly gates, they're going to say, okay, you go to the stupid room. Because, I mean, what were you thinking? What was the logic of that? You were going to take on everybody? And what was that about?
Yeah, and I know it's like you said, they say, this election was stolen. Prove it.
Yeah,
they have no proof. And then I think, wasn't it Fox News went there one time? They go, well, I didn't think people were going to ever believe us. They'll admit in court that they're an entertainment station.
That was, well, maybe you're right. Maybe it was Fox, but I thought it was the Kraken lady.
The Kraken.
She claimed in court after saying, talking inanities basically, because I don't know if you saw the clip with her in the January 6th committee when, or maybe it wasn't her, it was like that Hirschman guy. He mentioned that when they were discussing it, she was saying how it was all fraudulent and this and that. And Hirschman said, yeah, but 60 judges said it wasn't. And she said, well, they're all corrupt. And he said, all of them?
Everyone. Even they're mostly all Republican judges too, but they're all corrupt.
It's crazy. I mean, when you start seeing Trump appointees denying him, because that Eileen Cannon in the 11th Circuit, that was because of a Trump appointee judge that said, no, thumbs down. That's not the way the law works. Because,
I don't see them trying I don't see them trying to assassinate Biden. I think he's protected.
Yeah, well, again, it's hard though. That's the other thing. Biden, all the presidents since Kennedy, maybe by Reagan still someone shot him early on, but it's gotten more and more difficult because they're very sequestered. And by the way, when you make a move on like this on Pelosi's house, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to ramp up security even more, So it's like the notion of how easy do you think it'll be to hit the Capitol now? Not so easy, because now they know that people can get that idea, so they fortify. So, the people that say, oh, we saw the insurrection and we're going to see it again and next time they'll win. That's harder because there are more defenses.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, now they're prepared. They're prepared. Yeah. And I think with the people watchers, the police are prepared, to keep an eye out for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tough period. I mean, the astrology of the U.S., we are in a cycle that is very reminiscent of the 1860s, when there was a civil war, where there were actual huge numbers of deaths because there was a section of the country that had the money to create their own army. That was the South. They had all the slaves. They had a lot of money, a lot of affluence, so they could actually put together an army. That's not really possible now. It has to be more of what Trump is doing, this kind of guerrilla warfare and a lot of chaos. He's trying to create chaos and hope that the chaos somehow shifts the narrative. But that's a big, big lift. It's hard. It's hard to win playing games like that.
I knew it would be bad when they voted. When I seen he won, I couldn't hardly believe it, and I knew it would be bad. But I never even imagined it would be that bad. That he would be this bad.
Well, to be honest, I thought Trump. I always have seen Trump as a kind of an idiot liar, someone who's limited. He says he's a genius. He's not. He's an idiot. but he's also a major liar. I just didn't realize how corrupt he is, how absolutely criminal. I just thought he's kind of a wild man, but what he's done, it's beyond corrupt. I mean, it's, and by the
I
way,
think so too.
do you notice that what he did? He knows, despite the fact that a person like that is never going to be introspective and understand themselves very well, but he knows very well that he's corrupt, because as soon as he goes into an election, he accuses the other side of being corrupt. He brought in the idea that Biden is extremely corrupt. And Biden, that's the last thing people have said about Biden in the last 30 years. No one has mentioned anything about
nobody, and they're going to
Biden.
impeach him. And they say they're going to impeach him for what?
For what? Yeah, for what? For what?
Are they wanting to be like the Nazis, where you, like you said, where you just go arrest political opponents without, I don't see us going there.
I don't see it. I've said this. I still have to post some more videos around the fine detail of the House race, the Senate race, and I channel it mostly through, for instance, McCarthy versus Pelosi, and then Schumer versus McConnell. The one chart I don't have a time for is McConnell's, but I have the other three. I do have, and the McCarthy Pelosi is somewhat close. But if someone says to me, "Okay, you got to make a decision, put money on one or the other," Pelosi, that's who I choose there. And Schumer versus McConnell, not knowing McConnell's, it's a bit of a break, but I still prefer Schumer's as well. So that gives me, hope that it'll shake out well. And then you can also look forward to going into next year and the year after. It's kind of suspicious that the energy gets easier for Biden, and it shouldn't if things go wrong, right? It should get worse.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. Oh, and by the way, and the clincher's always been that in November, Biden has very, very good energy in November.
He just seems like a good man, and yes, he's older. Yes, he has a stuttering problem. So sometimes, he doesn't get the words right or something, but he's honest. I feel he's more truthful. He doesn't, and if Trump was president right now, he'd be out, all the accomplishments Biden has had, he'd be out there bragging up a storm. I'm the greatest. I fixed this. And Biden's just quiet about it. He does his work, but he doesn't sit there and announce it and grandstand himself. And it is so refreshing to have a president that is just more humble,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I mean, yes, he's old, but I heard one pundit, one commentator who said, well, has it occurred to you that maybe the reason he's accomplished this legislation and a number of other things, like he was able to bring NATO together very quickly under a lot of pressure, it's because he's old, because he's been around the block and he knows what to do. That tends to help.
That's true. A lot of times they disregard people when they get older, and in other countries and stuff, older people have wisdom. Older people are, I hate to say it, they're smarter. They've lived life. They've been through things. He's been in politics for a long time. And I think this has taught us a lesson. I hope that not any Joe Schmo should be able to go in there and be in the Senate, like Herschel Walker, sitting here saying that he's running on an anti-abortion program, and then find out now there's another woman that has come forward that said he drove her to get an abortion.
I mean, Herschel Walker, by the way, I don't have a time for it either, but just on the day positions, no ascendants. All I've got is, planets. And
I don't think he's going to win. No, my husband thinks so because of him. It's a big football. It's where he lives. It's a big football area. But come on, that.
He's running with Saturn near his sun and his other planets. That's pretty complicated.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Okay, think about it. Just alone on what's happening, because the astrology is reflecting you all the time. So the Saturn cycle is present now. So how would you like it if people brought out your dirty underwear in public? He says it's a lie, but he knows that it's true.
And then they've got proof. They've got his signature. Yeah. They've got the check. Right. They've got the get well card. They've got, and one lady, he said he didn't know her at all, and she talks to his wife. Texts his wife back and forth. So when you're in politics, all your dirty laundry comes out. I think they always try to find your dirty laundry, but he's got a lot of dirty laundry.
See, and the thing is that in the end, this whole discussion hinges on, in the era we live in, it's very divided. So both sides stick to their person. And Democrats, what Democrats have is the power of the vote. There are more of us. If Democrats vote in large numbers, they win nearly every time. The problem is when they don't vote, right? But remember Roy Moore? He was, it got brought out that he was sleeping with 14-year-olds when he was 30, things like that, really damaging stuff. But he got 92% of the Republican vote. That's what I read. So a lot of those guys didn't care. They thought, so what? Who cares? He's going to be in the Senate. He's one of our guys. So the corrective is vote to get beyond those numbers. And he lost because, if I remember correctly, back then, African-American women voted in very large numbers. That's the spirit. That's what you got to do, right? If you do that, then, in Georgia, it's 2 African-Americans running. Obviously, Warnock is light years, better than Herschel Walker, but Democrats have to vote to, bring that forth. And maybe he loses a few, let's say, in the middle. He'll lose some, because I'm sure there are some voters who are neither Republican or Democrat who are thinking, well, this guy, he seems like he's both a bit of a liar, and he's also doesn't seem very smart and so forth.
He had a gun to one of his wife's heads.
Oh, I know.
And he's been an absentee father to all his children that he's got here and there, and he's had abortion. And the thing is they said, well, one of the ladies, I forget what her name was, but she said, I don't care if he aborted a bunch of baby eagles. Said I want the Senate. We want the Senate, is what she said. And she called those girls skanks. But you want him to be the senator.
Yeah.
And they said, well, he's got hit in the head too much.
See, but this is the thing. When you bring all this to a point and say, okay, what are we going to do? Because we're in this situation. Unless you plan to pick up your musket, no muskets now, you pick up your weapon and you start shooting at the other side, or they start shooting at you, then you got to throw through the vote. There's no other way. That's the way it gets done. And, look back to 2016, look back to 2000. The reason we're in this jam is not because Republicans won. It's because Democrats didn't vote.
I think they will this time. They will this time. I never voted in a midterm before this last one, because I didn't know much about politics. I never really followed it. And now, as soon as Trump came in office, man, do I follow it. And I vote. I vote anything I can vote, where before I didn't see the urgency in it. So if anything, it's taught us Americans to have our freedoms, to have our democracy. We need to vote. It doesn't matter. You need to go.
Excellent point, which also, you could also say, looking at the world glass half full, you'd say Trump, without realizing it, has made voters more aware, more civic-minded, more likely to participate. And he certainly has helped women to rise, because now we have more women senators, House representatives, because of him, literally because of the way he's insulted women as a gender. So this is often what happens. You get unintended consequences that can be really good for a country. On account
and the stuff that they're saying, like they don't want, they're trying to take away women's rights. They are trying to do things that people want. Social Security. They're threatening to take people's Social Security. Mm-hmm. What Republican wants their Social Security that they paid into all their life taken away? That's going to lose them votes. They're saying things, I think, that will lose them votes.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that, to me, sometimes it all comes down to, you're in these situations and you think, well, this is looking dicey, what's going to happen here? What should I do? And so forth. But if you look at it like almost like a sporting event, I like our team better. I think our team has better odds. That's the bottom line. So, support the team. And this is where people will have to be, put your thinking hat on and don't do what happened in 2000, where 90,000 Democrats who thought they were being smart by giving their vote to Nader. Then Al Gore lost the election with 500 votes, right? Yeah. And then we got Roberts and Alito because of that, right?
Yeah.
And now you complain, then, oh, they're putting in laws that I don't like. Well, because you voted for Ralph Nader. It's a 2-item menu. Pick one.
Yep.
Pick the one you really dislike and vote against them. It's simple.
Yep. And think of all the kids that have student loans and stuff that are going to be voting and stuff, and they're saying they don't want to help them. That is a good for the Democrats too, because like my daughter, I think she's at $80,000 in debt for student loans.
Yeah,
she'll be paying that to the day she dies, and she don't make that much, so
it makes sense. Yeah, it's true.
It's nice to help people.
I mean, the thing is, the way these guys portray things is like when they give a tax cut, someone who is already making money will get that 80,000 in the first year, as a break. But no one talks about that because it's kind of through the back door. A tax cut, It looks, you can't really tell. But when you give someone relief who doesn't have the $80,000, that's infinitely more valuable. But politically, they can use that as a kind of a cudgel to say, oh, look, they're giving money away, and they agreed. She agreed to pay that money. Well, yeah, she did because she had no choice, because that's the way our system is set up, to make education so expensive that only rich people can afford it. That's not cool. You have to, balance that out. That's the whole point, right?
And doesn't it make our country better if we have educated people and we have educated teachers and we have, and we need those things, so it helps the country, it helps the economy, and they're acting like they're just giving stuff away. And I have some Republicans friends, they'll say, well, I work for what I got, and they need to get off their, what happens if you get hurt at your job and you need disability? What happens when you get old and you need, I don't know any of them that are rich. So I would think some of these things are going to influence them. I put down some cards. I was wondering how 45 was feeling right now. And the first card I got was 9 of Swords, fear and anxiety. So he must be feeling a lot of fear, anxiety. He wants to move on from it. I think he's going to try to get a peaceful resolution. He wants to try to make a deal with them. And I got that he's frustrated, and I feel like he's unbalanced with this card. And yeah, he's in misery. He's emotionally drained. So I'm getting nothing good for him.
Yeah, and that's also the current astrology too. So I agree, 100%. I agree, because that's how it works. Matter of fact, doesn't matter what happens in the midterms, although it's probably because of what's going to happen as well. That both of those are kind of there. But his aspects, his planetary cycles, starting late in the year already, before the spring, are really bad, right? Really, really bad. So I know these cycles. I study them all the time. In fact, when they affect me, I don't find them easy. They're tricky, right? You have to be really, really good to go through difficult cycles and not lose your way, or at least feel off center, feel off your game. And then on top of it, when you behave the way he does, because he's like a bull in a china shop, he's constantly criming. I think the man lies, and at the rate that he breathes, he's lying or committing a crime. So
I bet he commits crimes in his dreams.
It's beyond brutal. I mean, probably the saddest part, but that's another thing about the U.S. too that's really interesting, is that the U.S. is a country where it's like a giant melting pot where you have the smartest and the worst of the lot. And there are so many people in this country that are willing to follow this. And it's so corrupt. It's just so, you just think, why would you follow a guy like this?
Aren't you glad you're on the team you're on? I just can't even imagine.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, she goes, oh, we got to be careful. Oh, we're in trouble. This world. And she was going on and on. I knew she was talking about it with Biden because she's a Republican. And I just kind of changed the subject, because it is hard to talk to your relatives and family that.
Oh, the ones that follow Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, in my family, I'm lucky because I think there's one, but it's someone I don't speak with ever. So then I don't care. But the majority of the people are Democrats, including, by the way, I have a sister in Canada who is fairly conservative in her approach to life, but she doesn't. She's smart enough to know, she says, no, this thing is completely corrupt, and it'll actually end up destroying the country if you follow a person like this. It's really bad for everything, markets, you name it, right?
Oh, yeah.
she's not with him at all. So
I'm hoping for the midterms. Have you been feeling like that? I keep getting that we are going to get the House and the Senate. Have you?
Well, like I said earlier, what I said is I filter the House most. There would have to be some weird thing. Maybe it'll come into my mind. But the way I look at it is, okay, Pelosi, McCarthy, and what I said is, you give me a choice. Those two, it's somewhat close, but all the analysis I've done, Pelosi wins that battle. And the same with Schumer and McConnell. I prefer Schumer's chart. It's a bit of a question mark there in the McConnell. I don't have his time, but even with what I have, it feels that way. The planets that I can see, that he's getting stopped, whereas Schumer's is still, it's a powerful chart. So
I like Schumer's.
That to me would signify, even though, by the way, the current news has been that the momentum is going the other way, and that it.
Somebody said, Charlie, I was just going to look at some of the comments. The biggest difference for a new insurrection, she says, is that the president now is in control, like you said, of the military. So if he's in control of the military, then you're right. What are they going to do?
Correct. Although we should add that the main reason, when I call Trump an idiot, the main reason he has to be an idiot, because he knew very well that Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the army, was not backing him. So if that thing had gone really ugly in 2020, the military was never going to back him, because they know what he's like. They know that he's he's a crook and he's a fascist wannabe. And you can't run a proper coup without the military. It's not going to happen, right? I don't know what exactly would have transpired if he had gone to the Capitol. Who knows? But my point being, the military wasn't cooperating, and they certainly aren't going to cooperate. No. Biden there. So, yeah, I mean, what I would say to an insurrection is I would say, look, I appreciate you feel this way, but I'll just tell you that the odds are really strong that all that'll happen is you'll go to jail. So go ahead. I mean, do what you need to do.
I think he'll probably try to plead insanity or get that. But then he did this horsewoman, or what is it, woman, child, camera, TV thing. He said that I have the best brain. I have the best brain. So, I don't know if he'll be able to do that, but I wonder if he'll do that option before going to jail, or if maybe his health will give in. It's one of those two, I feel.
It could be both. I mean, the main thing is that when your cycles are difficult and they play into the theme, the subject matter that you've been entertaining, working with, making mistakes in, that's the way it shows up. There, it's kind of mathematical. And so, I mean, in a certain way, if you look at Trump, he hasn't had a day of rest since he got elected, because he had a really nice Jupiter transit when he was being sworn in, but already by January of 17, the FBI was kind of asking him questions. And then soon after that, he had to fire Flynn because Flynn was lying to the FBI. Then he got into the Comey thing. I mean, he's been going from one thing to another all the time.
And how does he have time to run the government when he's just fighting off all these, you know what I mean? He doesn't have time to do anything except for say, it's the Democrats, it's a hoax, it's a witch hunt. How many witch hunts can you have before you actually know there's a witch,
Yeah, well, I mean, I often thought, I know it's not really funny probably, but I thought, if it's a witch hunt, it's because you must be a witch.
I know. Sherry says, in a horrific way, Trump was the best thing to ever happen to this country. And it's hard to think that, but there are some ways, like you said, you find out about people. There are people that I've known that had beliefs I never knew. You know what I mean? Racist beliefs and things that he's said it's okay to come out with that now almost for them. And you've seen things with them. He's shown us what we need to change in our government.
Yeah, no, exactly. That, I mean, that's the thing that I think a life rule should always be, always see the glass half full and ask yourself, well, what if this points to something positive? Like, exactly, you discover what is really under the rock, sort of thing. And also you can say, we got to protect with actual laws to prevent another guy who might actually be smart, not like this clown, someone who could actually execute, but they shouldn't be given the keys to the palace. Just, like for instance, how is it possible that here we are in 2022 and someone can run for office without showing their taxes? That should be compulsory. You should show your finances. If you don't want to do that, then don't run.
All the other government employees have to do that. One person that told me that she worked for I think it was FBI or something. They had to show their taxes. They had to show that they did not owe money to anybody, that there was nothing that could be used against them.
Exactly. And, a rule, and I don't know if this will happen, but to my mind, there should be a law that says if you're in public service and you say something publicly, you must be able to back it up in court. You can't just say things. You can't say the pigs are flying, at 2:00 in the afternoon and then go at 4:00 in court like Giuliani did and say, "Oh no, Your Honor, we're not alleging any fraud." But you just said it. You were, like, in a sense, inciting a riot out there by saying this to you. That should not be allowed. That this is where society would benefit by having these rules. It's a little bit like, this is, by the way, in astrology, it's the force of Saturn. It's the idea that you live in a city, they have traffic lights. Why? So we won't kill each other. You stop. Yeah, it's a little annoying. I wish it were green. I wish I could just go right through the red light. You can't do that so that we can all get along. They're rules we all must respect. They're limiting, but they're helpful. Trump is the example of a person who says, there are no rules for me. I can just do whatever I want. No, you can't, because then you do a lot of damage, right?
But the good thing is he's not real bright in the fact he just says his crimes out loud. So there's a record, and video records, written records, Twitter records. They've got so much proof on him. January 6th. I don't think he's going to get out of this. I think he will be indicted.
I mean, in a certain way, he's such a he's such a damaged human being. He gives off this incredible inferiority complex. Like, he always needs attention and people validating him to the point. I mean, think about this, right? He goes and he talks to Bob Woodward, who took down Nixon 40 years ago, or 50 years ago, whatever, a long time ago. And what did he take him down on? Tapes. And so what does Trump do? He tells Woodward everything, and now Woodward puts it out in audio.
I know.
I mean, and then he's saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have done that." Well, why were you talking with him and telling him?
Yeah, I have these records. They're top secret. What was it? Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un sent him the love letter, and then he said, "Did you write to Kim Jong-un?" "Oh yeah, but these are top secret. I'll let you see them, but don't tell anybody." It's like, you don't just let anybody see top secret documents. And how masculine is that you have a love letter?
Yeah, I mean, did you see? I know I mentioned I think I was talking with Lyndon. I brought it up that I nearly split myself laughing because I was watching Colbert at night. He has this like little 10-minute thing on YouTube. It's fun to watch that. Yeah, so Colbert put that, what you just said, the clip with him saying, "Oh, we fell in love," and the way it sounded, Colbert just looked in the camera like this, and then he goes, "Did Trump have sex with Kim Jong-un?"
I know.
And then he went on. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry. This is your
It is, but it's like, and I guess they were saluting him and standing at attention. He goes, "I want my people to do that for me." It's like, we are not you work for us in America. The president is supposed to be for the people. We aren't supposed to be. You're not a dictator. We don't have dictators. But you're right. There could be somebody smarter than him that could get away with this. And now they see they can if they don't put rules in place. Which they will.
Exactly. Like, I mean, if there isn't a set of rules, it's sort of the traffic light analogy, or picture an American football game with no referees. They would just kill each other, right?
Yeah.
You got to have a thing that says, this is what you do, and if you don't do it, then this is what results. There's no other way, which is why I know that back when we had the 2020 thing with Floyd, and it was a horrific thing. And then the message was defund the police, but you really can't defund the police. It's not a good message politically or practically, because you need the police to maintain order. Like, no one wants the police until there's crime in your neighborhood. And then you think, where's the police?
Maybe they need more training. They need to weed out the bad ones. Like, if somebody's been accused of doing what happened to George Floyd, out.
Right.
Prosecuted, out.
Okay, let's look at that. That's a white racist cop, a totally heartless man who did something horrific. Well, he got 22 years in jail.
Mm-hmm.
He got a pretty big punishment. So, or for what happened in Georgia, Arbery, that was another hateful, awful crime. He got, both of them got life in prison. That would never have happened, probably 50, 60 years ago, definitely not 100 years ago. So progress has been made, but we need to make more progress. That's, to me, the way to focus. But I was actually, by the Georgia trial, that really struck me as, wow, that's really something that you could get a jury of. There would be, I'm sure there are African Americans on the jury, but also white people on the jury, and they convicted those people, and they convicted them hard for what they did, right? And that was the classic vigilante mentality that used to be present in the South. So, some progress has been made, but then if you start saying defund the police, they use that against you. They say,
which do you think is, I don't know if you have any feelings on this or not, but I was wondering, which thing do you think is going to take him out? The taxes, the January 6th, or
Trump.
Or Georgia?
I would say it could be both. Like people like Trump, the way I understand people like Trump is, it's like there's like a set of dominoes, and you just need one of them to drop, and then it's like a chain reaction. So what could happen is something, for example, the two most likely right now are, well, actually three. This guy's got so many, it's incredible.
I know.
He's got the New York case where he's being sued for $250 million, and he doesn't have much that he can do about that because there are so many papers that they can use.
And they say that's a minimum. It's probably, somebody said they thought it was more like 700.
Exactly.
Million,
And then you've got Fannie Willis, who's got the goods on him because she's pushing into, and by the way, he left the evidence there, audio evidence, pretty clear. And then you've got the papers with the records that he took to his house. So those three are more dangerous than the insurrection, even though that's also on the table as well. But think about it, right? If this guy starts to really feel the frustration and the anger and even the fear of the walls really closing in, that's when health tends to pay you a visit. And he's not 40 or 50 or even 60. He's 77, I think. It gets more dangerous when you're older, and he's not in great shape. I mean, it's tricky. So, and the fact that the cycle, you see the Saturn cycle that he's getting, you put Saturn in the death house, transiting for 3 years, and Saturn is the ruler of the health house, and you tell me what that means. Not good.
Wasn't it taxes that took out Capone?
Yes, I often mention that to people, that Capone was murdering, people right and left, and he never went to jail for murder. He went to jail for tax evasion.
Yeah, so, and I think this Letitia James, she's like a bulldog. I think she don't care. I think she's going to get him.
Yeah, no, I no doubt. There's no doubt. These are strong, competent women. Fannie Willis, Letitia James, the Judge Amy.
Liz Cheney, yep.
And that's the last thing you want. That's the last enemy you want. And then there you go to a different planet. That was the Iris thing that I mentioned to you. But that one, he's never going to get away. He's going to be.
I am so glad for Liz Cheney, even though I'm not in her politics are different than mine. She at least had some, I don't know, some morals or some, she's putting her country over her party,
I know. I mean, isn't that incredible that I didn't particularly, in fact, I didn't at all. I thought her father was, I thought of him as Darth Vader back in the day, because I remember that through all the political study I was engaged in, I thought Bush was kind of a lightweight president, but Cheney was the real deal in terms of doing backroom dealing and basically stuff that I really disapproved of, right? So if you had told me in 2008, there'll come a day when you'll be admiring Dick Cheney and his daughter.
I know. Who would have thought? But I do. I admire her. I thank God for her. She is, like I said, all of them should be. I don't care, Democrat or Republican. They should all put country over party. And right now, what happened to Paul Pelosi, everybody, Fox News, all of them should be saying, we don't condone this. This is wrong, but.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that with Fox News and with any messaging, because when you think of Trump, it's the danger of messaging, information that is really disinformation. The only way people like this are ever brought to account is what's happening to Fox, where they're being sued by Dominion. And Dominion is trying to make the case that they've been badly damaged, which they have, by the Fox, and same like with Sidney Powell. If they, or Alex Jones, another nut job who is now basically probably never going to get out of a courtroom the rest of his life because he's going to have to pay all kinds of money on account of his lies. So if you push in there and you make it very expensive for people like this, then maybe that'll help, because there's really no other way. I mean, otherwise they say, well, it's First Amendment. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. And even though you might say to them, hey, this is like yelling fire in a
crowded theater,
you make everybody panic. Then you have to prove it and so forth. So, but if there's money, maybe because Fox could lose a lot of money.
And look at every single person that has stood by him is going down. Every single person. He's got people in jail. He's got people, having to go to court, possibly going to go to jail. Insurrection. I mean, so you would think anybody look at him and think, I don't want to be anywhere near him, because he will throw you under the bus. If you're a lawyer, he will not pay you. I would think that I don't know. I just can't see how anybody would stick with him.
I mean, there's not, you're totally right, first of all. But I mean, think about it. Despite all that, right? You're seeing all these people, and there he continues. And the thing that you mentioned earlier, that you felt angry this morning because of Pelosi, right? And of course, it's righteous anger. I was feeling really miffed that he put out one of his, things on Truth Social, very ironically named Truth Social, because it really should be like Corrupt Social.
Social.
Yeah, I know, BS Social. But he puts out this thing to basically put the judge's life in danger, a judge who is simply following the law and compelling him to do what has to be done legally. So he puts this thing out, and the obvious intention is to have one of his nut job followers maybe do the same thing that was done to Pelosi's husband, right? But what I don't understand is, why can't the judge, like if I'm that judge and I have the power, I'm not sure if they do, but I think they may have this power, I would call Trump into the court immediately and I would say to him, you do that again, and I'm going to put you in jail for contempt of court. And by the way, from now on, in this particular case, any statement you make is officially blocked. Don't stop. They should be able to do that, because otherwise
a gag order.
Yeah, like something that says this is the law and you must respect it, because this guy just has no respect for anything. And so he's putting people's lives in danger as a result, right? So
I would think so too. They've seen what happened to Pelosi's husband. They've seen the insurrection. I would think that, listen, you got to shut this guy up. He's causing, he's causing riots. He's causing, they just need to put a gag order. I don't know why they don't do that already.
Well, and in a way, if there were a law that said you can be on any social media, you can say whatever you like, but whatever you say is a statement that can be held against you if you're a public figure. That especially, because you could say for everyone, and maybe that's true to some extent too, but it's especially true the minute you take an oath to defend the Constitution, to be a servant of the public. How can you then play these games where you lie through your teeth in public and pretend like something is real when it isn't? And then when you're asked in court, you say, oh no, well, I didn't really mean that. I mean, yeah.
Do you think Fox News, after he gets indicted, will change their ways? They shouldn't say news anyway. They should be made to say entertainment, propaganda.
I'll say this. I'm looking forward to the way I do with astrology. It's always the planetary sign shifts that come. They don't come, every week or every month. They kind of go out in years, right? So we're getting in the spring next year, Saturn switches signs. That's going to bring in some new energy. Then Neptune will switch signs in 25, and so will Pluto already by 24, but solidly you see really new energy by the middle of the decade. So these things take time, though. They take some time. That's the bottom line about it. That
I know. We all thought that that they weren't doing anything about this, and then we find out secretly he's just been being quiet.
Who are you talking about now?
Is it Gardner?
Oh, Garland. Yeah.
My brain I had one of those menopause moments there, or it left my brain the name. But yeah, he's been, on the ball, but we thought he wasn't doing anything. A lot of us thought, come on, but I think he wants to, when he gets him, he wants to have everything right, so he can't get out.
Yeah, and I mean, for Garland, the incredible thing is this is again Trump's reverse genius, that for Garland, the insurrection, it's doable, but it's very hard. Like when you're trying to prove things like sedition or insurrection, it's a tough case no matter how much evidence you have. But Trump's genius was to do this thing with the records, which gave Garland tangible evidence. That's like a prosecutor's dream, to go into court and say, well, yeah, you did it because I have the papers.
I know. He doesn't have, I mean, I was watching the trials, the January 6th insurrection. I couldn't believe how much stuff they have on him. It even shows that he planned this. And Bannon was even saying that, this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be like a normal election. We're going to say we want. So,
yeah.
I mean, they have everything.
Yeah, I mean, think about that, right? If you're a prosecutor and you present a case with witnesses and circumstantial evidence all pointing, it's a pretty good case, to bring up against Trump. Now, the other problem, though, is that to realize that, again, for our protection, but here's where you can get into a problem, is that it is a jury system, and you have to find 12 jurors that will all agree to convict Trump criminally, which is not an easy thing to do because it's hard to get 12 jurors that are all.
Yeah.
If there's a single Trumper in there, he could say, well, I'm just not going to convict. And if you ask him why, he'll say, because I don't feel like it. Right?
I just want him to go away. I just want a gag order on him. If anything else, put that gag order on him.
Well, you're right. And it is going to happen, I think, sooner than later, although the sooner here could still take us into a couple more years, right? But remember that, for example, if the election turns out better than Republicans expect and they don't get any traction, the main reason is Trump. Trump has caused this problem because Trump is elevating really moronic people. And when you run people like Herschel Walker, you're asking to lose a race.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert.
Yeah.
All of them.
They're already there, but I'm thinking of the ones that, like Vance in Ohio, and, Dr. Oz, things like that.
Dr. Oz, I can't even picture. He doesn't even live in Pennsylvania. Doesn't he live in New Jersey?
Yeah. No, and by the way, Oz would be, of the crazies, he's the most sensible, moderate sounding person, of that group. Because think of that other guy who's running for governor of Pennsylvania. That guy sounds like someone that came out of the Southern Army. In fact, he was photographed in doing one of those, Civil War.
Oh yeah.
Reenactments, and he says things like, "If I'm governor, the votes will be counted how I say they will be counted," and like he's almost telling you that he's going to disregard democratic rules. So they've got some really, really questionable people running.
Well, and all the Republican ads that I have seen, they all have guns. They're all like, they're all toting their ARs, and I'm like, how is this a good thing? Showing us, we have enough violence in this country. We want violence to go away. We have enough shootings. We don't want. I would think that's a turnoff to me, showing them.
It is. But the thing is, there are many people that in this country that follow that.
Philosophy.
Yeah, that basically Second Amendment, which, by the way, it doesn't say that. That's another thing that just, to me, it burns me every time when you think, well, why are you quoting that when that's not what it says? But I mean, think about it. Scalia, when he was a judge, he interpreted the Constitution as saying that. And you begin to wonder, well, why would you do that? I mean, he was a smart man, but you think to yourself, that's corrupt. That's corrupt and dangerous. You're encouraging people to do this. Someone is making money here. Something's happening here that doesn't have anything to do with safety or common sense or even the Constitution, but a really smart judge did this. So they've been, the Republican brand has been really declining, since the 90s, since Newt Gingrich, came on the scene, there's been this like burn everything down, scorched earth. I remember when Obama was in power and when the Tea Party came in, I noticed that they were beginning to lie openly. Like I remember hearing Ted Cruz and thinking, this guy's just making it up. He's going in front of the camera and saying the opposite of what is true. And their voters didn't seem to mind. It was like they had decided this is good enough for us. We don't care as long as our team gets in. But that's bad for democracy because then, the whole system starts to buckle, right? And you get
alternative facts. That's what they called them. Alternative facts. It's like, I know there's facts and there's lies, but alternative facts, it's just like, it doesn't matter if it's a fact. We have our alternative facts. Like,
alternative facts. They're also alternative facts. Oh, you mean lies? Okay, let's go on to the next question.
I should just say that. I'm going to let you go here. I just wanted to see this. Believe 45 will beg delay in any trial in order to recover from his chemical peel in order to improve his. Oh, come on.
In order to recover from what? Chemical?
They said it's some about in order to improve his aged, haggard looks. Don't think there's a girdle big enough that could hold in 100% bad hair day. I don't know. But he won't look too good in prison. He won't have his tan or self-tan or.
I mean, like, it is true, though. The comment is true. The delay part, that is definitely always the strategy with Trump, because he knows that if he delays, you never know. Situation could change.
Maybe the Republicans will get anything.
Yeah. But by the way, he's not alone. Whenever you think this is taking too long, just do some looking around at other cases. One of the best is that I've often mentioned this, that woman who was caught in that blood scandal, Elizabeth Holmes. She had access to a lot of money. So she was caught in a major fraud in 2016, 2015, a long time ago. And it took 7 years of diddling and dithering and moving around. And finally, she was convicted. And I don't even think she's been sentenced yet. It's a very slow process because if you have money to pay lawyers, they keep stalling and filing motions and looking for ways to, appeal more. Trump will take everything to the Supreme Court. Whether or not they take it, he'll file. Before he gives in, he'll never give in to a judgment of a lower court because he can just stall that way, right? And so then
but if they had a gag order on him, at least he couldn't be spouting out all these lies about the case. So that would be nice. Some judge is going to do it, I think.
I would hope. And to me, these are things that if they're strengthened, they're good for society. Because if you have no respect for judges, then nobody has any respect for anything. I mean, they say it to the person, Your Honor, Your Honor. If he's an honorable person, why are you, saying these things about him and putting his life in danger? That's just crazy. Exactly. It's a crazy system. It should be, we all agree, we don't do that. Just like we agree, it's not good to take your car and run through the red light because that's dangerous. Someone could be hurt.
Well, it's kind of good to know because I think we just want it now. We just want, it's like it's been 6 long years, and you're like, oh, come on, get him already. But, I guess justice is slow, like you said, and just, we got to be patient and know it's going to happen. You can't put out that much negative and not get some of it back.
No, I mean, I think there are 2 groups here, the blues and the reds, right? And if you're a Democrat, the focus should always be keep your mind on the target, keep your mind on we're going to make this go this way. The mind is very powerful. If we've got a collective of people always focused on, no, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to vote and we're going to have this go our way. Don't talk about how it's not going to go well. Focus and show up and everything is fine. We have the numbers. Maybe they're not set up as well as we'd want, but even that can be overcome by big turnouts. And then, they're going to try to cheat. Let them try. They're going to be, embroiled in legal battles. And it's a tough haul when the evidence doesn't support what you're trying to do.
It makes me feel better. I know it probably makes a lot of people feel better because, the justice system is hard when it goes so slow, but at least we know it's working. Like you said, it is working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This, Alexa said, Trump took the Montreal cognitive assessment and did not realize it was not an intelligence test.
Yeah, that's like, I know the test that he took is like for someone just to make sure like they can put on their pants and, get through the day. I mean, it would no way. But it's remarkable that he would
You
be
don't
on
have
TV.
dementia.
Right. But then he's on TV saying, oh, I'm really smart because I said person, woman, camera, TV. You know, and you think to yourself, don't brag about that. That's not.
I couldn't believe it. And who was the guy that interviewed him? I know his name, but it's escaping me now. He was on Fox and he left to go to CNN. He's been a journalist.
Oh, yeah. Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace, yes.
Yeah.
And he says, you know that one of those is just like a picture of an elephant and a picture of a giraffe, and knowing what the difference is. But I knew.
Trump is like a teenager, you know, an insecure teenager who never grew up, and he turned into a monster because he was telling Woodward on the tapes things like, "Oh, Obama's not that good a speaker. I'm better. You know, I'm a better speaker." I'm thinking, really, Donald? Honestly, really? Like he couldn't even. You know, it's really funny how he remember he couldn't say origins. He kept saying the oranges of the investigation. Of course, he says oranges because he's really familiar with orange. But what's so hard about origins? Origins. You know, repeat it. It's not that hard.
Yesterday, he said he couldn't say the word yesterday. That's a hard word. I can't say that. Let's leave that out. I'm like, what do you mean you're the president? You can't say the word yesterday? It's crazy. And Kofefe, like when he made that typo, most people would say, oh, I'm sorry, that was a typo. I meant to say, I have typos all the time, you know, but he digs in his, I meant to say Kofefe.
No, I know. He never, like when he's reading a teleprompter and he messes up the word, he'll say things like, one time he said furniture instead of future, and he just keeps going.
The furniture of the world depends on it.
It's remarkable. Like when they make the Netflix series about Trump, it's gonna make like $1 billion because they're gonna have. They probably can do like 100 episodes. Oh, a really big series. Like it'll make The Sopranos look light, and there'll be so
they're not
much
going to put that in one show.
Yeah, because there are so many threads, and I mean, in that sense, it's very entertaining. It's just that it's scary entertaining, right? Because when it's affecting everything.
Neptune's other daughter said, what will people talk about when he's gone? I wonder. You got to admit that. He has.
Yeah. It's just that at the same time, it is super dangerous because he doesn't seem to mind that actual people can get killed. And all of this is, you know, comedic until, for instance, you have that the policeman Fanon, who was nearly killed. And I wouldn't want to be. Can you imagine living through something like that? It's just like a total terror. So, and that was caused by Trump. Totally, you know, he's responsible.
Something else, but you know, I'm really glad. You know, it's nice to have you doing your charts and things like that. That just when you told me the chart had changed on him, it was like a sigh of relief. And now I can wait. You know, but it's just good to know that there is a light at the end of this dark tunnel we have all been in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the charts are like magic for change, for things, you know, showing you the time periods. That's why I was saying in early 21, I kept saying, wait till the summer, because that's when Trump is going to really be facing the music. But I didn't know that it would be that the committee would start to do their thing then, because I initially I thought the committee was going to be in the spring, but I was seeing it in the summer. And then I had no idea this guy, you know, I sort of knew a little bit, but I didn't think like he actually has nuclear secret records in his house. I mean, it's hilarious. I had no idea. I was in Europe when the FBI, you know, went to his house, and it was shocking because I thought, is this guy really this stupid that he would do something this illegal? You know, anyways, so that's.
And they've seen the people with the boxes moving them. So those people are going to be questioned, and they're going to answer because they're not going to want to go to jail. And I think they should search all his other properties too, you know?
Yeah, and that probably will likely come in due time. But remember that you have to be careful because of the politics, right? You have
they won't want to make it look like they're just after him because of the presidency. Yeah, exactly. That's what he's going to try to use.
That's exactly what he does. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, you can give Trump credit for being the most effective evil politician that I've ever seen. You know, the classic. He knows the moves to get. You know, he's kind of a mobster. He gets the mob to follow him, and he knows where to push, you know, buttons to keep himself moving. But it's still a strategy that has a timeline. You know,
Well,
another
hang
primary.
on, everybody, because there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to get there. Just, it's nice that we have this whole community to support each other through all this, though. I really do love that. You know,
Yeah,
are
that's
you
good.
going to have another show here today,
I'm
or
sorry.
coming up soon? Are you going to
Me?
be having any other shows you're
Well,
going to be
yeah,
doing?
I probably will be. I know Linda and I have been meeting regularly, and yeah, there are a couple of other, actually three that I'm thinking of. But you know, with what it is, you have to set them up and agree on times. And but yeah, I want to do some before the election and some after the election, and I also have to put together some videos of the you know, the close races, particularly the big ones, the House and the Senate. And I kind of alluded to it in the past, but I need to add a little more detail. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll be quite busy the next few weeks. Yeah,
I'll
for
be
sure.
watching that. Is there now? Do you do before I let you go? Do you do astrology classes? Do you give astrology classes that you might
I
want to let
do.
people
I
know?
do. So I do a class every Sunday at 11 o'clock Pacific, which is 2 o'clock Eastern, and you know 1 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock in Mountain and 1 o'clock Central,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I do that every Sunday, and that's on Patreon. And so there's a lot of astrology there already. So anyone who joins my Patreon gets all the previous classes. So right now there are about 50 hours of astrology classes going back to last November, and I'm going to be revamping that, and uh, it'll be going into next year. It's going to be, instead of 4 classes a month, I'm going to do 2 a month, but the other 2 will be how to work your chart to manifest the chart, you know, at higher levels, which I think is even more useful, because the thing about learning astrology is that not many people really follow through to learn it deeply, but getting the information, the sort of the strength from astrology to affect your own life is really valuable, right? So that's what I intend to do with that, and so that's the answer. And then I do consultations where I go over people's charts, you know, when we.
Oh, okay. So they can have their chart read by you
Yeah,
also. They can.
yeah, that's
Okay.
another thing. Yeah, you
How do
just set
they
it
do
up.
that? Do they just go to your channel, and is there a link or?
Yeah, if they go, if they go to my channel and they go to the about link,
Mm-hmm.
you see there what to do, because it takes you to a website, and then you can, you know, you go through a couple of links, and then you can do whatever you want, set up an appointment or join Patreon or whatever, you know, to avail
Okay.
yourself of all of that. Yeah.
Okay, so if any of you guys are interested in taking astrology classes or getting your chart read, you should go over to Andre's channel. And if you would go to his channel and subscribe, because he's awesome.
Oh, thank
And I love watching you. I feel like I'm stupid when it comes to astrology, but I love how you explain things where
you.
I can get most of it. Sometimes when you talk about this, what is it you say, aspect or that
Yeah,
aspect. I
aspect.
don't know
So
what that means.
aspect is like, an aspect is you have your natal points, and then the planets, as they're moving, they make aspects.
Oh,
They make links to the beginning, and that's when things happen to you. That's the logic of.
okay. Well, good. Now I know what that means.
Yeah.
So, and if you guys too, if you would go, if you want to, you can go, when you get off, go and hit subscribe or like on my channel too. I appreciate it. If you like it, you know, do that. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I won't keep you any longer. I kept you longer than I meant to, but it's just so interesting and fun talking to you. And
Thank
I
you for having
really
me on.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Okay, well, everybody, you guys go to his channel, and if you need his link, go in the description box. I've got his link down there, and click on it, and it'll take you right to his channel. It's Astrology Alert. So, thank you guys, and I will see you on my birthday. I'm having a birthday show, November 6th.
Oh, wow.
Is my 58th birthday, and I decided I wanted to be lazy and have a party at home. I'm having a party for myself. So, just going to hang out on YouTube with all my friends and have a glass of wine and let them read cards or do whatever. I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll have so. Okay, well, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.